Hello, everybody. This is Sree from BizBuzz, What Matters the Most in Your Business. Sponsored by My Work Belt. My Work Belt is a all-in-one software, particularly catering to service-based small businesses all over the world. If you have not checked it out, you may be missing out on something very, very buzzworthy. Please check it out, myworkbelt.com. And today I have a wonderful guest, needs no introduction in my channel, Craig Andrews. Craig is a principal ally at alliesforme.com, and they are master in helping you on sales and marketing of a high ticket, high trust transactions. And Craig, you and I were talking about Q4 is being a little down, and we talk about the polls. So let me ask you, why do you conclude that there is a little bit of a hesitation in the market for the Q4?
Well, I ran a LinkedIn poll, and of course, it's not scientific, but the the question I ask is, what are your revenue expectations for Q4?
Mm-hmm.
And 24%, basically one quarter said they expect solid growth.
Mm-hmm.
33% said they expect kind of steady performance, not spectacular. But 43%, number one response, said it's tough right now. And
Interesting.
Yeah. I've heard that just kind of anecdotally talking to a number of people,
Yeah.
but it was interesting. I had a lot of activity on this poll, and um, and so um, I think it's just what people are feeling. I think um, and this isn't a political statement at all. It's just the uncertainty of the tariffs, I think, have people a little bit cautious and a little bit concerned. And the market, people get scared when there's uncertainty. People get scared and they get cautious.
See, I wanted to ask you that. See, uncertainty is just the nature of any business. When you come to the business, right, when you're talking about entrepreneurship, there's a lot of uncertainties that goes with it.
Yeah,
Now, when you're talking about uncertainty at a particular given point of time, it may be just because of that some topic that is prominent in the market. Right. I mean, today it could be tariffs, but tomorrow it could be elections, or one time it could be Gallup poll that blew the gasket out of the businesses, right? Or consumer report could be, or anything could throw some sort of a chaos into the market, right?
yeah.
Now, how, as a business owner, how do you prevent yourself from getting into depression because of these uncertainties are given by the market, news outlets?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you have to you, I think you have to take an inventory.
Yeah.
And I've done this. I've number of times I put up on my whiteboard, and I just say, like a major event like COVID. And I would put what's changed,
Mm-hmm.
what remains the same,
Mm-hmm.
what are the opportunities.
Yes.
And so if we go back to COVID, what's changed? We lost the ability to meet in person.
Correct.
But what else changed is people were much more accepting of dogs and kids showing up in the Zoom
The
calls.
Zoom calls. Yes.
And what hasn't changed? Well, people still need to grow their business.
That's not changed. That never changed.
Yeah. And so for me at that point, I started running training. I realized I'd already been working on Zoom, already been doing, a lot of sales calls on Zoom. And I realized there was a whole lot of people that needed to figure out how to sell without selling in person. Had
Correct.
absolutely no experience selling on Zoom. So there's a element where there are changes, there are things that change in the market, and we have to respond to those. And so, I mean, COVID was an example of something. But with that comes new opportunity. Well, when I ran this poll, I ran it because I'd had a few comments here and there that just gave me the impression that maybe people were a little bit nervous about the economy. So I ran the poll and asked, what are your revenue expectations? And I realized the number one response I got was, it's tough right now.
So let's
And
talk about the polls in general, right?
yeah,
What is the um what is the trigger point that a business should run a poll? I mean, it's not necessarily the poll on LinkedIn, right? They should be doing some sort of a pulse check in their own customer community or in their own prospect community, on their own suspect community, right? What is the trigger point that you should be running a poll uh, in your recommendation? And apparently, you are recommending to run some sort of a polls once in a while, or if not frequently, because you do that by practice.
yeah. Well,
What is the
I
importance of
don't
it?
think, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a trigger point. I think you should always be getting feedback,
Correct.
and you have to listen. You have to listen really, really carefully, and be careful about your assumptions. So, let me give you an example of a place in my history where I had customers trying to tell me something and I wasn't listening well.
Yeah.
And so when I marketed semiconductors for mobile phones, I had one customer in particular, Siemens, very big customer, who started asking me if it was possible to put a temperature circuit inside the power amplifier.
Hmm.
And I just blew it off. I never really gave it much thought. And I was just like, well, that doesn't make sense. And no, it's not possible. Well, I left the company I was with and I joined a new company, and they were developing a power amplifier that had, guess what? A temperature circuit in it. And so here's my customer. They were trying not to violate their NDA, which was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But they were asking me questions that I should have listened to better.
Correct.
And I think that's so it's not a trigger point that should drive a poll. I think you should regularly be connecting with your customers or your clients
Mm.
and just interviewing them and just listen very, very carefully. The the thing to be careful about, and Steve Jobs put this really well, but people misunderstood what he said. Steve Jobs said that people don't know what they want until we put it in front of them. And people misunderstood that to say that Steve Jobs never got customer feedback and he just built things and people loved them. Well, that's not true. We know that Steve Jobs consumed massive quantities of
Hey.
customer research and customer report, but what he was listening for was pains.
Hmm.
So when you're doing polls where you're looking for customer feedback, don't ask them what they want, ask them what their pains are.
That's a wonderful thought. Actually, it's a very powerful thought you're sharing today. Now, as a small business owner, I am not that highly intellect as Steve Jobs, right? Now, what are the few couple of, if at all, two small questions that you would suggest to discover the pain of the prospect or a customer in the poll?
Well, and some of this, it depends upon the size of your business, but
Yeah,
the I would start actually having conversations with people instead of necessarily running a poll first.
yeah,
And
yeah.
in the conversations, I would ask questions like, and I'll just tell you one of the questions I ask of all guests on my podcast. I ask them, I say, hey, if you could snap your fingers and make one change to your business that would change the trajectory of your business, what would that one thing be?
Hmm.
Well, after I hear that, I hear the number one thing that's broken.
Yeah,
And I use that for referrals because usually I know somebody who can help them solve that problem.
sure.
But the
But that's actually
la-
a great question to discover the problem of your customer.
yeah, and listen for what's causing the pain, and then I would just start asking some more questions. once you hear that, you'll hear a few different answers, and then you can put it out to a poll. Now, polls are easy to get wrong. We have a blog article saying how survey questions and focus groups are ruining your business.
Yeah.
And so you have to structure it very, very carefully. Um, but one thing most businesses have available to them is Facebook.
Yes.
We we'll spend a couple $1,000 on Facebook just to figure out what people's top pains are. And
Mm-hmm.
so we'll start with a hypothesis of 5 pains. We believe that these are the top 5 pains they have.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll run a test
Yeah.
where we're just trying to measure which pain most people click on.
Yes.
And 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 that's a way for us figuring out what the top issue is.
Correct. Okay. So if you're suggesting that in our conversation, listening for a feedback is extremely important,
Yeah.
which we are already determined, and many people already say it over and over. But how do you learn that feedback? How do you listen to that feedback? You made a very wonderful point that if you snap a finger and change something in your business, and that changes the trajectory of your business, which is really a powerful question. But that works well when you are in person meetings. But when you're
Mhm.
going into the polls, you shared a very, very good technique that you can use Facebook or any platforms that you are suitable for, and you run a question, and that will list 5 different pains that you think are prominent for your own target audience. But one will come emerge to the top. And I go one step further. You may take 2 or 3 of the top 5, the top 3 of the 5, and then you run one more, and then you may emerge into 2. So you take 2 of them, and now you have some data, some sort of a data that's available for you to work with. Now, once you know, as you are well put it, once you know the pain, you can solve the problem, and that becomes your basically a success story.
Yeah. And
Okay.
whoever's best at removing pains, they win the market.
No doubt about that. No doubt about that. And there is one more statement that I've always heard, not necessarily that you find a pain and fulfill it, or you may also have to think about that. Sometimes you may find a perceived pain and fulfill it, and you may also win it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Excellent. Craig, as always, I greatly enjoy our dialogue. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom, and I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks, Sree. It's always a delight.